Creation Museum. That got a lot of play yesterday, and we'll be bringing you more on that story because there's going to be a debate. And this is something I truly believe in and have advocated for, more debates. I find it very interesting that people say, oh, the debates, I mean, you had so many people. Well, when you say debate, it doesn't mean you want the 8 contenders in a primary speaking for 30 seconds or a minute or 90 seconds about changing healthcare. No, you want to see one-on-one. And I've suggested kind of a Final Four breakdown, NCAA tournament, if you will, or even go around robin between the candidates of the parties. And it doesn't have to be on every major network, but I would think that people do want to watch and listen, and that's why they're so important. It would also break down the mainstream media's monopoly over it. And they're changing some things, obviously. Republican Party is doing that because they finally have woken up to say, wait a second, we're not getting fair coverage at all. I mean, Candy Crowley comes in and injects herself into a debate and gets something that's absolutely wrong and false. And then Michelle Obama, the president's wife, the first lady of the United States, our first lady, starts clapping and misrepresented one of the biggest lies of 2012, if not the entire Obama presidency. But I digress. So the economy, we've been told it's recovering, and there's some good signs with GDP growth up, but that's a lot of inventory, not necessarily the sales of that inventory. Bottom line, we're at 7.3% or 7% unemployment. So that's a good sign, right? I thought we were supposed to be at 5.3% or under that at this point because of the recovery packages. Oh, that's one of the things that you'll find. They had really no positive impact overall when it comes to the economy, because when you try to stimulate demand by taking money from the next generation or the current generation of Americans who are in the top 10% and take that and go through the redistributive process of government, it's like taking a pail at the pool and going to the deep end and putting it in, filling it up, walking it down to the shallow end. And by the way, you're probably like me, you're going to probably spill a little of that because you're jogging it down. The next thing you know, boom, throw it into the shallow end and say, we've got a lot more water. No, Einstein, and it doesn't take a ripping Einstein to recognize you don't. In fact, you have less. And only through those genius multiplier rules and theorems and the concept of you can actually make that dollar come back to you in the form of another dollar. But if that would be the case, then why wouldn't we just have the government give everybody a lot more dough to stimulate economic growth and we'd be all fat and happy? Well, we're halfway there in one regard. Unfortunately, big weight problem there. And the problem there, by the way, I'll tackle obesity too. Yeah, absolutely. They don't put enough warning labels on the foods. That's it. I think, and they need to limit Big Macs and the size of burgers. I really think it's all about control. I think Mayor Bloomberg was doing the right thing, finally, really cracking down on those big gulps. Just can't, nobody needs to drink that much. Yeah, I'm being sarcastic, the lowest form of humor, only making the point that if you incentivize, which started to happen, at least in the healthcare market, but if people have to pay for their health and in a way that is going to impact their day-to-day living because it will impact their costs, and so they'll have to pay more for making particular decisions. Make no mistake, after 40, it's very hard to keep weight off. I struggle myself and consider myself a pretty good athlete. Yeah, Crane, you're just great. No, I mean the fact that I ran regularly. I still do. I work out, and it's tough. I get it. It's hard. So I'm not belittling the challenges that we all face in trying to keep the weight down. What I'm saying is the government should let the market take care of it. But we really have seen what that has been when it comes to our health and Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, and the adding on of costs, the lower access to doctors, longer waiting rooms. We Do I have to talk about it? So I'm just tired of talking about Obamacare and the failures. 6 million people compared to 1 million people getting, 1.3 million people getting their health insurance. Yeah. Break it down. Oh, and then going into Medicaid as well, but 6 million still have lost. But the president rewrote the book. Yeah. You're finding you just can't do this. You can't have an ad hoc lawgiver. That's why it was invested in the Article 1 powers of Congress. That's why. I love when people speak to our founders, and the people who speak to our founders are violating the Constitution, overstepping, making laws that they said they couldn't make a year before. Arnold Allard wrote a great piece on immigration and 2014 and amnesty. I'm working on having him on Monday. But this is maybe one of the best articles on immigration and politics. If you read this article, you're going to be versed not only on the background, but also how it will manifest completely come November. Arnold Allard of frontpagemag.com. So, economy, is it recovering? Yeah, granted it is. As I said, we've been told. Higher GDP, it seems to be working. But what's the truth about the economy? What about unemployment? Well, George Will, Washington Post columnist, had this to say last night. Roll it.
The recession began in December 2007. Since then, we've added 13 million more Americans are in the country, and we have 1.3 million fewer jobs. We've lowered the unemployment rate largely, not entirely, but largely because workforce participation rate has gone down as more and more workers have been discouraged and are no longer counted anymore because they're not looking for work. If the workforce participation rate today were as high as it was when the recession began, the unemployment rate would be 11.3%. We wouldn't be calling it a poor recovery because we wouldn't call it a recovery at all.
These are one of the many facts. Now, what does this mean? It means when people are looking for work and thinking, hey, it's up the upswing because we've gone through this and we always recover. Sometimes we drop down, and if you look at a chart, it's like a V. We go real deep and then we pop right back up. But that's when you let the market work and you let people make choices and be free, in essence. And a part of that is also incentivizing growth by not penalizing it progressively, as our progressive tax code has done, which I'm against. Fair tax or flat tax. That's what we really need. But bottom line, home ownership, as Zero Hedge points out, it has been in decline for 8 years. Number of startups, according to Tim Kaine, economist. Bush Sr., that would be George H.W. Bush, 11.3. That's the number of startups, jobs per 1,000. And this is the average. 11.3 for George H.W. Bush, Clinton 11.1 or 11.2, Bush W 10.8, President Obama 7.8. Household income, median household income has fallen for 5 straight years. So with Obamacare, with more people losing their health care, and with the debacle it is, we really, how can you totally recover? Not even totally. How can you see a recovery? Because you really can't plant. You can't plant because you don't know what the soil is going to be, and the soil is being polluted by a government that is overstepping. Also, rhetorically, you get a tax if you succeed. And somehow, President Obama, with the theme of equality, is actually sending the signal to market, hey, if you've got dough, I'm going to take it and give it to others to make sure that we're all closer. And that you can't have a recovery in that. My concern is the generation that is being raised in the Obamonomics world starts to look at the state as opposed to God for direction in their lives of how to use their godly gifts, starts demonizing success and prosperity, not recognizing that it's not the love of money when you want to be successful. Money can do very good things. Money can do very bad things. I think it's a great way to plug into a church and organization to grow and get awareness out there and save people from abortion, from sex slavery. It's to inform people about the day-to-day, about their individual liberty. And we've demonized success. And what I mean I think President Obama has. And what's happened is people have forgotten how we got to where we are in the sense of the creation of wealth. People have forgotten that. Day in and day out, I think to myself about the examples I've seen in my life of people who have risked a great deal and worked very, very hard, only to be belittled by a group in the ruling class about how unfair it is that they succeeded and how they owe others much more. And the way they owe is not through choice. No, it's through government taking, coercion. Bad move, real bad signal. And when I think of that, I think about the American spirit and the American dream and innovation. You can't have innovation when you choke the system. When you say innovation has to go through the government and where it directs resources. But government's like God, Crane, don't you know? They don't have self-interest in government. That's the argument, right? But you know where I'm going. Rather than tap into our 10th commandment and violating that and coveting what others have, why not look at them and ask what they do? How they do it? What makes them successful? Because we can always find a reason why we didn't succeed. We can always blame others. We can always complain. We can always give excuses. It's a cultural crisis. It begins with the father being removed and the state coming in to be the father, preaching dependence and envy. And it's sick. And it's a sickness that America has right now. And the only way really to cure this, the antidote to the disease that we are seeing, is actually recognizing God, that we are created. People say, abortion, we're losing the argument, we're losing the debate, and yet we have more pro-life measures put in place in the last 2 years than ever before. In a 2-year span, we see more life measures being put into law. So there's something going on here. But you're hearing the side that says, you're wrong, you're not making a difference, people don't agree with you, you're a bunch of nut bars. Aren't we supposed to expect that from the world? Speaking of people who, not necessarily nut bars, but people who have different opinions when it comes to race and cultural issues as well as politics, Charlie Rose and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Roll it.
I think the country is doing on the racial front?
I think we've been doing some backsliding. You know, what I've seen, you know, some of the Supreme Court decisions and all this effort to suppress
Having voting rights in the South.
Minority voters. I don't get it. It seems like we're moving backwards, but I guess we're just going to have to keep up the fight.
What fight are you referring to? Of division? Of ignorance? Tell me, what fight are you saying it's 1965 right now? And we need the measures in place regarding the establishment of voting laws? Are you referring to voter ID, which we've seen an increase in minority voting since voter ID in every state that's put them in? Charlie Rose, what are you doing agreeing with that? You should challenge it with the facts. Of course, Charlie Rose is, well, he's a journalist. He's an outstanding interviewer if you want part of the story. And that's fine. You see, this is the problem. Race relations are made worse by racial hustlers. MSNBC, take a good look in the mirror. You're hurting America. And what you are doing is you're doing it on the backs of those who actually were looking for everybody to be equal under the law. And you're shaming their legacy. Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth, AFR Talk.